Good morning. Betting for breakfast, college football, week two. It's going to be such an exciting day today. Back in action after taking last week off. I'm Mark Drumheller. I'm here with Dave Gleckner. And Dave, the gods have blessed us. The sun is out. We got a crisp fall breeze today. Perfect weather for tailgating. And we got a slate that just has some incredible games that I am so excited for. Coming off hot last week, Dave, I saw you on Twitter posting some winners. How are we feeling today?
Feeling good. Last week was one of the best week ones. I know they were calling different things last week, week 0, week 1, but last week was one of the best big first weeks ever in college football. Crazy upsets, but at the same time, the cream rose to the top. We've seen Alabama separate themselves. We've seen the Georgia team make a statement. It was great, and it's going to be even better today. There's some awesome games. Obviously, big Power 5 conferences playing each other in the Big Ten, Pac-12. And then we got some good other, that Big Ten game down there with the Big 12. That's a big one too. We'll talk all that coming up. This week's going to be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, today's slate is fire. I mean, we have Oregon. They head to the Horseshoe in Columbus. We're going to talk about that, give you our thoughts on that matchup. And Iowa State, the two top 10 rivals, going at it head-to-head today. Iowa usually plays them pretty tough. Huge year for Matt Campbell and his crew. So can't wait to get into that one either. And, of course, we got bets. We got winners. And the winning started last week, Dave. I mean, we were right at it. I went 2-1, 4-1. On my sharp at picks, 6-1 on the season. Everything seems to be falling in place. And I saw you on Twitter nailing it, had a couple. And we talked about Georgia Clemson. And, Georgia is the one team I feel like in that SEC that can really kind of give Alabama a little bit of run for their money.
Yeah, a little 7-1-1 run last week. The only loss being UCF, losing by a hook because they went for too late in the game to try and cover it. And that's all good. Hey, when you lose them close, you're right there. And that's why you stick with your guns. And last week, pulling off UCLA again was a big winner for me. I was big into Chip Kelly, LSU. I just thought playing that extra game, that was huge. And it really did show them having that, they were a little faster. They were a little tougher, hard to say against the SEC team, but they were. And then Georgia, absolutely another, I got a lot of money on them to make the playoffs just because, that was the game. I just felt if they got through that game, the playoff money was really good. So we're going to see. They're going to be number 2 team in the nation now. Great defense. JT Daniels looked like crap, but that's okay when you get out with a W. And then rounding up with Sunday, that Notre Dame-Florida State game, the hunch with Florida State was simply Bobby Bowden and the momentum of Mackenzie Milton. Finally, Mike Norvell put him in, and you saw that momentum. And we'll talk a little bit more about Notre Dame today because I think they have a tougher matchup, and they could be one of those teams that might be fake news.
Yeah. Notre Dame is a team that I was a little bit down on coming into the season. Didn't play that FSU Notre Dame game. It was a strange one. It was a strange game, but wasn't expecting all those points either. A lot of explosive plays in that matchup, which kind of speaks to the defenses a little bit as well. But you talked about UCLA, Dave, and I want to get into them. The biggest surprise I think with them in that LSU matchup is that they were able to dominate that team physically up front, and I think that's really where that's Chip's bread and butter. Like that's what he wants to do. But it's very atypical of a Pac-12 team. We don't typically see Pac-12 teams bullying around an SEC team like that. But the running game is strong in UCLA, and it's a conference that I feel like is wide open.
It is, and I'll tell you the truth. I mean, we start riding teams at the beginning of the year. That's why I got the Roosters on, right? Well, I got me a UCLA shirt on the way. They're 2-0 for us already, beating Hawaii. And then that big game last weekend, I feel like they could be a team that we really keep an eye on throughout this year. And they are tough. They are physical. Zach Charbonnet has been, a godsend for them. Let's just say he just looks amazing. The quarterback hasn't even played well yet. Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And there's a lot more. The tight end looks great, but they're just physical. They're hitting people. And if they can play that style in a typically softer Pac-12, they're a real threat. They are an absolute threat this year.
Yeah. Nice of you to go out and get the sissy blue UCLA shirt.
That's what I got.
Your man, Coach O.
That's
Coach O
had
a lot of mouth before the game. Wasn't too talkative afterwards. Nice to see UCLA stick it to them. I thought LSU could be a team that could surprise some people this year, but I do have some concerns. I'm wondering how much of their success was built on some of the coaches that had left, right? Joe Brady and those people. And now you have Ed O sitting there holding the bag. probably on the hot seat now a little bit.
Yeah, and he is. But I think where you're right, I think Max Johnson is real. I do think he's a good player. So I think you hit it on the nose. They losing those key coaches, I think, and it's kind of like the Eagles Super Bowl year, right? There's a lot that builds the foundation. It's not just one person. And losing that foundation, you can start to see it starting to crumble a little bit. But they have talent. I'm not sure they're really putting out their best effort. That's not good news. That looks right at the coach.
Yeah. Love the Coastal shirt today, by the way. Listen, Coastal's still cashing in. They made people sweat last night, but they're still cashing in each week. Grayson McCall, they're one of the most fun teams. We made a killing on Coastal last year, every single week. They're our favorite team by far. But I'm not going to lie, I haven't had the heart to bet them this year. I feel like the numbers have been very big.
I did last night, and I had to sweat 4th and 10 from the goal line for Kansas with 40 seconds left.
That was a tough one, man. That was a tough sweat. I was surprised that Kansas was able to score the way they were last night. Yeah, they definitely looked better. More explosive plays. Had a 2-1 week last week, Dave. Rode Sark and Texas. Hook 'em horns, baby. I thought that they're a team that the market continues to underrate going up against a team in the Sun Belt. A lot of people, I think, overrated Louisiana going into that matchup. And we saw Sark just show that Texas is on a different class, right? Young quarterback or not, they got the job done there. And cashed in on Western Kentucky, got a great number. They hung it initially at 9.5. That didn't last long. They took it off, shut it down for a few days, came back with 13.5. I pounced on that. Then they shut it down and they opened it back up a little closer to kickoff at -22. And I think it went all the way up to 24.5 before kickoff, but won that one in style, 59-21. The Houston Baptist connection, Bailey's app, those guys just lighten up the scoreboard. They got a tough matchup against Army today. It's going to be very interesting to see if they can stay on the field to kind of, continue scoring the way they are. Only loss, the Spartans, San Jose State, going to USC. That's a game I got wrong. I'm not going to lie to you. San Jose State had plenty of chances to cover, didn't get the job done, but I'd be lying to the people if I told you that they were as competitive as I thought they would be in that game. USC looked very good, especially the secondary impressed me in that matchup. So misread on my part. I got a good number at +15, but just wasn't enough.
Not going to get them all. It's all good. 2-1.
Yeah, we don't bat 1,000. We don't bat 1,000, but listen, it was a profitable weekend. Had a little bit on the Kansas State money line. So, real good weekend, and we're looking forward to having another one. Listen, I know I talked about it earlier, Dave. The weather here in the greater Philadelphia area is just fantastic. You get the nice fall breeze. I am so excited. It's perfect weather to really open up your sports betting app, get the business. That's what we want to do here, pick some winners. And you know what? Forget about it. Don't even open your favorite sports betting app. Open up the Sharp app. You can get odds for all the best books. It gives you the best line, whether you're betting money line, spread, total, whatever you're looking for, it's all right there on the Sharp app. Make sure you download the app. The description is in the YouTube description below. So excited for today's matchup, Dave, but let's start with the game that everybody's talking about, what I feel like is the feature game of the week, and that is the Ohio State Buckeyes against Oregon. Oregon travels to the Horseshoe in Columbus. Have it up here. Number 3, Ohio State. Number 12, Oregon. This one opened up at -14. We're seeing it tick up to 14.5. Same thing with the total. Opened up at 63.5. Is up around 64, 64.5 in some spots, right? At a 64 total, our implied score, 39-25, right? A lot of points expected on the Ohio State side. We saw them notch 10.3 yards per play against Minnesota in that game, where Minnesota did everything possible to keep that offense off the field. Wasn't enough, as they ended up, coming back and getting the 14-point win. And, you can kind of see in the graphic we have up here, explosive plays. Ohio State 5 on the offensive side. They allowed 4 defensively. Oregon 4-3, and then the turnover margin. Both teams ended up in the plus there. Dave, what are your thoughts on this game with Ohio State going to Oregon in this matchup, Oregon coming to Ohio State, laying such a big number?
Yeah, first of all, I got to watch that Ohio State game. That was the other Friday night. And C.J. Stroud didn't look great, right? I mean, he was
started shaky.
Yeah, behind the receivers on a couple, ended up with some interceptions early. But he did what Fields kind of did too, and he hit the big plays, the long balls, and just having Olave and all those weapons. You can see how they can be down and then just come and hit you with 2 right hooks, and all of a sudden you're down. So they're explosive, they're good. And, he shook off the cobwebs. That was my one push, I will say. I think I had Minnesota plus 14. I think they were the right side. But, hey, you take a push and you run because Ohio State hit a couple very late, long plays to really stretch that out. And it's all good. I think that's what you're going to see with Ohio State. I do think right now they're probably the second best team in the nation. I know what Georgia did, but Ohio State is good. And they're going to roll on a team today, and I got to take into account the big number, but also a West Coast team coming to the East Coast pretty much and playing at noon. That's a big thing for, Oregon. I got to think the adjustment's large. I got to think they start slow. And if they start slow, it could be a long day. Kayvon Thibodeau, that's a big story too. I think he's going to play. All signals point, but they're playing very coy with him. Oregon's star, potentially first pick in the draft, defensive lineman. Anthony Brown looked okay against Fresno, but don't take anything. Fresno's a decent team. So I'm not taking a lot. That was a look ahead to me. I'm not taking a lot out of that game, but I'm taking more of the factor of bringing a maybe not as explosive team that they've had in the past, playing early for them. I think it's a big ask.
Yeah, hey, listen, we're used to getting up first thing in the morning, right? Being on our A game, being ready to play. But I'm not sure if Oregon's going to be this weekend. This is a tough spot for them. And, when I handicap this game, Dave, when I look at the matchups on the field, what really sticks out to me is the Oregon defense. They have great linebackers, right? They have Flo, they have Sewell, Penny Sewell's brothers in there. Tremendous strength at the linebacker position. Of course, you talk about Thibodeau, could be a top 5 pick in the draft, right? Tremendous talent on the edge. But is he going to be 100%? What type of Thibodeau are we going to get? He made the trip to Columbus, so all signs are pointing to him playing. But is he going to be the same type of player? I doubt it. Right. And even if he is, he's going up against Ohio State, who probably has the best set of offensive tackles in the Big Ten. Thayer Munsford is just an absolute beast. So strength in the Ohio State offensive line can mitigate, Thibodeau, even if he's close to 100%, I think that they can be up to the challenge. The offensive line averages over 315 pounds. So I think that's a huge advantage for Ohio State because if Stroud can get protection, those wide receivers are going to be running all over the place, right? Wide open. Olave, Garrett Wilson, just really, the best in the country. And when you look at Oregon, when we look at the defense, we talked about the linebackers, we talked about the defensive line. Who do we leave out, Dave? The secondary. Because the secondary is probably the weakness of that defense. That's really the biggest challenge is, with Thibodeau being compromised, if they can't get to Stroud and they can't kind of disrupt him, he's going to have all day to throw, and he's going to be, teeing off on that secondary with those wide receivers. So I think it's a bad spot here for Oregon. The line, it's a big number. It's a big number, but that secondary scares me. Very inexperienced. 3 sophomores, a redshirt freshman back there. They let up close to 3 bills through the air on Fresno.
Yeah. I mean, I look at a lot of what you look at, and then I'll flip on the other side. But I also think C.J. Stroud played in a hostile environment his first game in Minnesota, and that now he's coming home, right? And now he's got this big crowd in front of him, a lot more comfort. This is where he's been practicing. I ain't get, the sky's the limit today. I think that he's going to shine today. And I think you're right. That secondary is exploitable from Oregon. And then on the other side of the ball, what scares me is Anthony Brown, the quarterback of Oregon, got sacked 4 times. Fresno created 16 pressures. They really only had 2 explosive drives out of the 16 they had, which is defined as over 10 yards per play on the drive. They couldn't do much against Fresno. And if you can't do much against Fresno, I mean, you're going to have to score 28 to 35 just to be in this game, in my opinion. And I'm really not sure that offense is geared up right now to hang with this Ohio State offense. So I really have fears on the offensive line of Oregon. I don't think they're going to be able. Anthony Brown had, I think he had 17 rushing attempts, 16 rushing attempts. That's not going to work here. He's going to have to move the ball through the air, and he only had 16 completions against Fresno State. I'm very concerned about the O-line at Oregon and their ability to have explosive plays. I don't think they can keep up with Ohio State.
Yeah, nice little 3-point comeback against Fresno, right? Not playing Fresno anymore. And if he has to play from a negative game script, which I expect him to do because Ohio State's going to score points, right? We saw the
Yeah.
graphic, 10.3 yards per play against Minnesota. Obviously, Oregon, better football team than Minnesota, right, on both sides of the ball. But they're going to put up points. They're going to put, Brown in a position where he has to come from behind. And it could be from 10, 14 points. And it could be very early in a hostile environment. And I think that spells trouble for Oregon. Oregon was a team I liked to come out of the Pac-12 before the season started. I was interested to see how the quarterback position would kind of, develop and manifest itself. Would Brown kind of take the reins and do what they needed to do, or would some of the younger guys behind them have to step up? But I think that this is just a bad spot at a bad time for Oregon.
I agree. I'm Ohio State today, and listen, I'm not done with Oregon, and this is not an overreaction from the Fresno State game. It's just simply facts, and just seeing how they weren't able to stand up against definitely a lesser opponent last week. And Ohio State didn't play great, but then they still pulled out a cover or a push. I just think we're looking at a team that is heading one way. The other team is still trying to find themselves, like you said, with Anthony Brown. Bad recipe for today. Give me the Buck.
Yeah, I think so. I think the Buckeyes are the side here. And, interesting thing, you guys haven't played the game. If you watch the game and if it develops the way I think Ohio State could get out to a big lead, right? But if they don't, you want to look into, we saw this last week against Minnesota, you want to look into the live play at halftime, right? Because the one thing Ohio State is great at, we saw it last week, making those halftime adjustments. So, if Stroud takes a little time to even settle down, this week, who knows? They could be a play-on team in the second half. But if they get ahead and they are front running in this game, I think it's big trouble for the Ducks.
Yeah, and don't forget, the Ducks I think they had 5 fumbles they created last week, recovered 3.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a lot of turnovers are a key area to look at regression, and I'm not so sure you're going to carry that into the horseshoe today. So I think we're on the same side.
Yeah, ain't going to happen today, man. Ain't going to happen today. Our guy Arroyo checking in. Fresno State, man. He loves Fresno State. That's his team. He thinks they're tough. They are. They're
tough.
Good. We're not trying to give. They played tough, but
no, they're good.
Ohio State really, stepping up. And, we got Dennis checking in. Are the Ducks running backs good enough to keep this close? I don't think so. I think they're going to play a very similar game script to Minnesota. Like, I think they're going to try and keep Ohio State off the field. I think they're going to try and run the ball and control the clock. But again, that works when the game's close. When you start getting down by double digits, 10-14, because I think the Buckeyes are going to put up some big, big numbers today offensively.
Yeah, and Ibrahim was having a very good game against Ohio State running the ball until he blew out his, leg foot. So there is some possibility of success on the ground. I just don't know if, I just don't think they're going to be able to sustain it when you get down. So they're good. I just don't know if they're good enough to really control the game. It is probably what you're asking for. I don't think the running game can control the game against an Ohio State, a decent defense. They're better than what they showed against Minnesota.
Absolutely. Going to be a tremendous game. Iowa Hawkeyes, huge win, right? Blew out Indiana in a game. They were 3.5-point favorites at home. A game a lot of people wanted to see. Penix Jr. coming off the injury, how he would respond. Not well. Hawkeyes run away with it in a blowout. Now they travel to Iowa State in a rivalry game. 2 top 10 teams in this matchup. They hung this number at like 6 very early in the week. I know some people got a taste of that, but it has since gone down. We're seeing Iowa money come in. Dave, what are your thoughts here on Iowa State?
My biggest lean last week was Iowa. I know my boy Tech Money and crew followed that one as well. As we played at 3.5-3, we were playing with the lines. We didn't need any hooks. We didn't need to buy anything. That one was what we thought. And one of the big, when we had our shows earlier this year in Big Ten preview, Indiana under was also a big play for us. We know that, yes, they were 6-1, but there was a lot of, we can still talk about that play at Penn State. It was just one of those perfect setups for Iowa. They're great at home. They've won by double digits 5 out of their last 6 games going into last season. Average win total in their 6-game win streak is like 17. They are smoking teams. They're playing really, really well. And on the other side, Iowa State didn't look too impressive last week. But please don't take that to don't look at that too closely because Iowa State was looking ahead. This is huge for them. This is their biggest rivalry. And then if you want to look at last year, Iowa State lost 31-14 in their opening game to Louisiana Lafayette and then went on a roller coaster and started, hitting teams in the mouth. They come out slowly. I don't know why Matt Campbell does that, but I just want to tell you, don't look at last week. Just look at years past with Iowa State. They come out slow. This is their game they've been waiting for. So my first, thought here, Drums, this line is it's thrown me off. Iowa looks like the better team in a lot of the, data rankings. And yet 4.5 for Iowa State. So I think the books know a little bit of something here, and I'm trying to key in on why.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, coming into the preseason priors, everyone's priors had Iowa State contending for the Big 12. The question was, were they going to be good enough to kind of take on an Oklahoma, right? And, Iowa's a team, like you said, started slow last year, then rolled off some wins. One of the toughest teams, the team that nobody wanted to face towards the end of the year in those bowl games. I think their bowl game got canceled. But they were they finished the season very, very strong. So seeing them start off this year, the way they ended last year, I think really put the NCAA on notice. They're now in the top 10. But when I dug into that game against Indiana, Dave, I kind of wondered, how much of that had to do with Indiana and how much of it was Iowa, right? I thought Iowa was very opportunistic in this game, but the question I had with Iowa coming into the season is at the quarterback position with Petrus, right? 13 to 27 for 145 yards last week in that game against Indiana, 5 yards per attempt, right? Not really pushing the ball down the field. I think there's still some challenges there. They were 4 for 12 on third downs in that game, right? They had 3 picks that put them in prime field position, really taking advantage of Michael Penix Jr. And that was the story. It was the defense making those plays, taking advantage of the turnovers. Penix Jr. obviously coming back off an ACL. A lot of people wanted to see how he would be. I think he was 11-1 as a starter coming into that game last week. 11-2 now because that one was definitely a loss. But, when you look at Iowa's yards per point, 8.9, fifth lowest in college football, right? And that tells the story of how opportunistic Iowa was in that game, right? Indiana gave them that game on a platter. All credit to them. They took it and ran with it. And they, Iowa bettors cashed with ease, not a problem. Not saying that they weren't the better team or the better side in that matchup, but much more tougher competition this week against Matt Campbell's group at Iowa State. And I think that this is your classic situation. Dave, we've been doing this a lot of years, right, in sports betting. We have one team undervalued, one team maybe a little overvalued. And I think that's how we arrived at the number opening at 6 and now getting bet down to 4. But I like Matt Campbell and his group here. I think that defense is stout on all 3 levels.
I agree with you on all, points there. I think another thing to look at, I believe Charlie Kohler didn't play last week, star tight end from Iowa State. So they'll be rolling him out. 16-10 was just, and that was another rivalry game. They were playing Northern Iowa. So, yeah, you're right. Some undervalue and overvalue there. Iowa looked great, but they were very opportunistic. And all people are going to see is 34-6. They're not going to see those numbers that you just dug into and showed how their points per play were very low. Very low, and that's usually a sign of what a good team is. And then on the other hand, with Iowa State, Matt Campbell is notoriously very good against ranked teams. He's 15-8 against the spread against ranked teams. Iowa's 3-7 against the spread as a road underdog in their last 10. We do know they've won the last 4. The last 5 meetings, Iowa State hasn't won this game in Ames since 2011 in a thriller 44-41. A lot of hype there. A lot of hype.
They circled it on the calendar.
And I think they've circled it for a while, right? I agree with you. I think it's a perfect situation where you're going to see a lot of people, and even the money's moving to Iowa, a lot of people siding on what they saw last week and forgetting about what the overall structure of these teams is. And I still think Iowa State is a threat in the Big 12. Throw out what Oklahoma did last week. People are saying their defense isn't good. Oklahoma is still very, very, very good. That was just one of those games. But they will definitely challenge Oklahoma this year. I like Iowa State today. I'm with you. I like Matt Campbell, how he can coach up these games. His special teams, I think, are going to be a difference. And Iowa's not getting that turnover advantage that they did in game 1. I like it close game, but I think they get the number. I think they cover it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at how you had Iowa State rated coming into the season, how you had Iowa rated. You can't throw it all away over week one, right? You can't just
Right.
look at week one and then one team underperforms, one team, wins in blowout fashion, and then you throw everything you knew away and just, you know, run to the window to bet Iowa. But it is a lot of points, and these games are typically tight. So I can see both sides, but definitely would believe that Iowa State is the side here.
Yeah.
But let's get into our picks, right? We got a couple plays for this weekend. They're the two big games. I'm super excited about those, but we got some strong plays. And listen, guys, if you haven't yet, join the free Discord. Hop in there. You can get the link in the description. The app is going strong. There is a ton of content, more content going up every single day. You can sign up at sharpbets.app and get access to all the pro sports betting models, the Sharp Academy, educational resources for every level of sports bettor, whether you're a novice or whether you're a professional making your own numbers, modeling, things of that nature. Use promo code FREEMDRUM and get 10% off sharpbets.app. It's the sister site to the app, so make sure you guys check that out as well. But Dave, let's get into our winners. I'm going to let you lead things off. One of the most exciting games was surprisingly a game that I thought would be very low scoring. Notre Dame and Florida State last week. Notre Dame squeaks it out in a thriller. A lot of people think that outcome might have been different if Mackenzie Milton played the whole game. But this week they host a Toledo team getting 17 points.
Yeah, I was begging for Milton to come in, very early in that game, definitely by just after halftime there. But in the end, I'm not sure it would have changed much. I think Milton showed a little bit in overtime. The fumble was it was just a killer. It was a great story. I'm glad he came and almost pulled that off. And I think he's got something going forward here. I've seen some, Florida State can get to 6-6 or 7-5, get to a bowl. I've seen some places where they would play UCF in a bowl game. And that would be kind of special, him going back against those Black Knights. But, hey, enough with that game. I do really, I've looked at this game strongly. And if you took listen or notice to our podcast or on the Sharp app a couple weeks ago, we talked about the group of five. And one of the areas I talked about the group of five was a team out in the MAC. I had them as a 4th-rated group of 5 team overall, and that's Toledo. They're really good. They're returning 21 of 22 starters, 58 of 62 lettermen. We've talked about this before. The returning, bringing people back in that continuity, especially coming off a year where you didn't play as many games, didn't have as much practice. It's huge. I really think it's huge. And I think a lot of teams that brought back those strong starting cores really did do well. We think about Michigan State versus Northwestern last week. Northwestern, I think, was the lowest. I think they had 7 returning starters and get smoked by a Michigan State team. So there is some value in those areas. And then you look at Notre Dame, it's supposed to be a really strong defense, led up 269 rushing yards to Florida State. Florida State does not have a very good offensive line. It's average at best, and they ran for 269 against Notre Dame. Toledo is strong in its running game. It has running back Brady Broback, who's a big-time rusher for them. They're just strong all around offensively. They have a good defensive secondary, and we saw it last week. Jack Cohn threw for, 366 against Florida State. So maybe they can bring that in and tighten that up a little bit. I think they keep this game really close. I like the points. I think, looking at a lot of the advanced metrics and rankings, this one should be a lot closer than 17. My justice spread shows about 8. So I'm getting a lot of value here. And I really like Toledo. And, these MAC teams surprise once in a while. They really do. And I'm taking the value. I'm taking the 17 here. I think we'll see what Notre Dame is after today. We're still a little confused. And they're on a short week, by the way. Give me Toledo plus the 17. Hurricanes.
Love it. You heard them. Hurricanes. Fire up your Sharp app. Get the best number. Punch it in. Toledo 17 against Notre Dame. Dave, first game I'm going to go to. Spread up to 7 now, right?
They're the Rockets. My bad. They're the Rockets.
Oh, they are? Oh, man. Holy Toledo. Look at you. Your mind's on the Hurricane. I don't know what's wrong with you.
Dude, yeah.
But, all right, so here we go. The first game I'm going with, It's a team that I was on last week. I talked about them being a little bit undervalued in the market. I think people think this is the same old Texas team. It is not. Sark is in town. There's a new sheriff, all gas, no brakes. Laying 7 right now against Arkansas, 57 on the total. Gave this out on the Sharp app for Discord members, at a much better number. Sark has got the offense cooking, right? All gas, no brakes. Bourne Robinson, 103 yards rushing, 176 yards total, right? And that's really the engine of the offense. Had a little bit of scare with the injury, should be good to go. I expect Arkansas's defense to load up the box in this matchup and really try and stop the run. And it's going to be up the Hudson Card to make them pay. And that's going to be the challenge. Is it's in a hostile environment. Is Card up to the task? I think he is. I get it. It's a young quarterback on the road, right? It's in the SEC. Arkansas wants to make an example of Texas, who's coming to the SEC. I understand all those narratives, but I really think this Card kid is a stud. And, the key thing here is that, it's a bad environment. Yeah, it's a tough Arkansas defense. Yes, it's a game that Arkansas really wants, right? But when you have great offensive coaching, and I do think that Sark is very underrated as far as what he can do from a schematic standpoint, and you have a young quarterback, it makes all the difference. We've seen this on every level of football. He's going to put him in positive situations. I expect him to continue to do the same thing today. Arkansas was very sloppy. 13 penalties last week, right? They lose Bumper Poole, their best linebacker. He had a targeting penalty. He's going to be out in the first half of this matchup. Bodes well for Texas to start with the running game early and kind of wear them down. I think when you look at this game, I think, both defenses are going to kind of sell out to stop the run. And the team that passes the ball better in high leverage situations is going to win. And I'm going to go with the young quarterback and the dynamic offensive mind here with Sark and Texas, and lay the points here against Arkansas. KJ Jefferson, if he has to come from behind in this game, which I think he's going to, this isn't Rice. They might not be the best team, the top teams in the SEC, but they're not Rice. And I think they're going to have a little bit of trouble here. I like Texas. I like Sark. Lay the points. Hook them. Let's cash in for the second straight week with Texas.
Nice. I like it, man. Again, looking at teams that you see value on, I'm looking at one that I see is overvalued. So that's really interesting. Yeah,
definitely. You got to look at both sides. Listen, the Miami Hurricanes took a beating from the SEC's best, right? Alabama Crimson Tide. Now they take on App State. App State getting 7.5. What's your thoughts on this one, Dave?
So I like App State. They're giant killers. We know that from years past. If you look at their overall win average over the past 7 years, they are 5th overall in all Division I football, averaging almost 10.6 wins per year. They're the beast that you don't hear of. I mean, yeah, we've heard of the day that they went into Michigan and won that huge game. But again, look at the Group of 5 talk we talked about a couple of weeks ago. And really what's important here, they're going to be that top team against Coastal, right? It's going to be, that head-to-head matchup is going to be enormous this year. You might even see, College Game Day go down there. That's how good App State is. They are a tremendous rushing team. Last year, they had 3 running backs go for over 500 yards on the season. All 3 are back. Cameron Peoples is the big one. I mean, that guy looks like Sean Alexander, tall, lean, runs hard, but then they got 2 others in Nate Noel and Dietrich Harrington. And I just think this team, this is their game outside of Coastal Carolina that they're circling and getting ready for. And they're pumped. We already know what they can do against these big teams. They're ready. They're thankful for the opportunity to play a team like Miami. And then on the flip side, you got Derek King, still a little rusty coming off that ACL tear, right? I mean, he was okay down the field, hit on a 29-yard touchdown pass, create a couple deep downfield pass interference calls. But other than that, couldn't do much else. What does that tell me? His mobility in the pocket is not quite there yet. And I know that's big for him. And then you talk about teams that play Alabama and then have to play the next week after getting their mentally beat up and physically beat up, and they got beat up 44-13. I really fear where they're at mentally coming into this game. I'm not calling outright, but I'm looking at a juicy number here, plus 7.5, and I'm looking at a live dog. I really am. And I like – now, my only fear here is App State's defense is not, it's not on that level of these ACC teams. So they really got to get creative and probably force a couple turnovers and win that turnover battle to stay in this game. But I think they're going to come up with something really creative. I like App State today. Give me the 7.5. Another dog, another group of 5. Let's go.
Yeah, getting that 7.5 over the key number is 7. Very important here. Taking the dog. And Dave, I think when you look at Miami, there's really not much you can take from the offense from last week because Alabama's defense is just incredible, right? So you really don't know what you have. So if you look back on how they played the year before and kind of how that offense has matured, not really great down the down. Like not really efficient as an offense. They kind of rely on big plays a little bit. The wide receiving core, I know they're excited about it. I still have some questions there. So definitely see the angle there. Love the pick. +7 with App State. I got one more I'm going to give out, and this is for the night owls, man. Everybody, it gets late at night. Sometimes you need a win. And I got one for you right here with Utah laying the touchdown, the key number of 7 against BYU. And Dave, this handicap's pretty easy, man. BYU stinks, right?
Yeah,
they struggled against Arizona. 33% on third downs. They got outgained 426 to 368. If Arizona had any semblance of a running game in that matchup, they might have won outright. They might have stole that game. I mean, BYU is not going to stop Utah on the ground. Utah just strong and impressive in the trenches, right? And, this BYU team was not even that good last year with Zach Wilson, to be honest with you. They tried to take a swing at Grayson McCall in Coastal Carolina and missed, right? So, I mean, this is a team that I think is just kind of overrated because Wilson was there. They had a lot of people leave. They did not return a lot of production. I think they're even worse this year, and I think the market is overvaluing them a little bit. Leaving this number here hanging around at 7. That Coastal defense was really their only test last year, this BYU offense, and they completely shut them down. Shut them down. So I don't think BYU is that good at all. I think this is a low number here at 7. I think Utah, even though they don't play the explosive offense, don't have the best quarterback, right, in college football, don't have the best quarterback in Pac-12, some questions to be answered there. I just think they're going to beat them up from start to finish, run all over them, lay the 7 points with Utah.
Yeah, my adjusted line is 10, and you're getting 7. So I like that pick a lot. Yeah, I think BYU's in trouble. I mean, right now they're ranked in the bottom half of college football in total defense. That's a problem.
So Texas A&M takes on Colorado, Dave. Let's squeeze one more in before we get out of here. For the people, Dave's third play, Texas A&M laying 17. A lot of people gave Jimbo a hard time when he took that job at A&M, but he's doing some big things there, has them in contention. Recruiting's been phenomenal, taking over a Colorado team up and down last year. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
So I'm not big on Colorado. I have not been. I think they struggle to get to those 4 or 5 wins that they need to get their team total over. And, I mean, it didn't show in week 1. They won 35-7 versus Northern Colorado. Quarterback Brandon Lewis, we didn't get to see much because he only threw 15 times, 10 or 15. They just didn't need to do much. But on the other side of the ball, we have a Texas A&M team that won 41-10 against Kent State, and they lost the turnover battle 5-2. Their quarterback, Haynes King, first-time starter, got it. 2 TDs, 3 interceptions versus, a very much lower quality team. So that gives you some pause for concern, but really where's this team's strength? It's in the running game. People talk about Isaiah Spiller as a potential Heisman candidate. He's not going to disappoint, had over 100 yards in the first game. And his running back mate in the backfield, Devin Akane, or Akane, I forget how you say it, also had over 100 yards. So they really dominated on the ground, and they also dominate with their defensive line. They had 9 tackles for loss in week 1, led by DeMarvin Leal, the stud defensive tackle. They had 5 sacks. They really can control the game at the line of scrimmage on both sides, and I don't think they need Haynes King to do much today. I think what they did in week 1 was try and test him out. I think today they reel it back. Colorado's offensive line was 8th in the Pac-12 last year in tackles for loss. They averaged giving up, I think it was 6 or 7 per game, and they're going to struggle against trying to control this Texas A&M defensive line. It's very aggressive, very physical, very big. And I think that's where this game is dominated. I think it's on both. If you give me the better offensive line, better defensive line, you lost the turnover battle by 3 last week, and you're giving me a juicy 17 number, I think they can roll this game by 3 touchdowns and really keep Colorado under 10, 14 points. So I like Texas A&M. I like the Aggies. I think it's a wake-up game when you have 5 turnovers, right? There's a lot of coaching you can do. And I think today's a good wake-up game for Jimbo and his team, and to really, get them back on track for the tough SEC schedule coming up.
Yeah, I love it, dude. Because, after a game like that, sloppy game, you really rein in the focus, right? We could see the best version of A&M this weekend. Absolutely love the pick, Dave. I'm pumped up for this weekend. I can't wait. More winners. Things have been going very well. We're going to continue to ride the hot hand. Listen, everybody who tuned in, we appreciate it. Guys interacting in the comments. We absolutely love it. Arroyo, Dennis, all you guys. Come back every week. We're going to be here every week on the Sharp app, serving up the college football slate, giving you our best bets, our angles on the big games, everything that we think. More importantly, though, guys, join the Discord, right? The free Discord is in the description. Click the link. Get involved. Listen, it's the best gambling community out there. You guys got to be a part of it. We want to talk to you every single day, every night in the Discord as we're getting our bets in and we're sweating these games out. Let's do it. Let's do it together. Bet with us, sweat with us, collect with us. That's what we plan on doing today on this college football Saturday. Very excited. Listen, we got a little bit of an announcement next week. Some exciting stuff coming your way on the show. So can't wait to get into that next week. We'll see you guys. Best of luck. Hope everybody cashes